all parts of the machine have to be running smoothly,
Uh-huh.
including your home life and your marriage.
Yep.
Your marriage is equally yoked when it comes to your vocation, right?
Mm.
They are both part of your identity in God's eyes.
Amen.
So you have to make sure that both of those things are getting equal effort.
Mm. Absolutely. Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This week, I have Chris Cooper on, and Chris Cooper is that budget guy over at Synced Up. The guy you reach out to try to get all your numbers right. That's what he was doing for a long time, and now he's shifting gears in his life. And I'm very excited to have him here on the podcast and to help unpack what's coming next for him. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Joshua, thank you very much. I am glad to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait to start digging in. It was an interesting meeting. I didn't know Chris before the Synced Up Summit this year. And a mutual friend of ours, Ryan Brighting, reached out to us both. I'm like, you know what? You guys need to talk to each other. So we eventually sat on a trailer there at Jordan Daniker's shop, and we just started talking about, our testimonies and how God's worked in our lives and how it's brought us to this moment. And, Chris started opening up to me about a lot of some of the struggles he was going through and this new idea he had to help contractors in the green industry. And it really stirred my heart what his mission and his purpose is. And that's why I want to get him on the show here. So, Chris, why don't you take us back a little bit? Tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you ended up on Synced Up, and what you're doing now.
All right. Well, gosh, how did I end up at Synced Up and how did I end up sitting here today? It was, as the Grateful Dead used to say, it was a long, strange trip.
Yeah.
I came up in a very volatile environment in my youth. There was a lot of divorce, a lot of abuse, multiple stepfathers. Mom did not make real good choices there. So my home life was pretty chaotic. I escaped that by enlisting in the Marine Corps in 1987 and did so really without telling anybody until just before I left so that they couldn't mess with the deal.
Mm.
And there's a lot behind that, but it was a form of escape. And so, I traded that chaos for structure. That'll become important later. And so when I finished up my enlistment in 1991, I got a job mowing grass while I figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And a lot of people, if they've ever met me and talked at length about how I got into the industry, they'll always hear that. I got a job mowing grass while I
Mm-hmm.
figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I did not know that was going to be a career choice, but it was. I stayed in the industry. I liked it, even though that first year all I did was run a line trimmer on
Mm-hmm.
apartment complexes day in,
Mm-hmm.
day out, dog poop and trash and kids and more trash and more dog poop. And I mean, it was just awful, but I liked it enough that I came back. So that'll tell you that I'm as weird as the rest of us, right? Uh, so I just started kind of moving my way up. I said, well, I don't want to run a line trimmer forever. So I learned how to run multiple machines and then became a crew leader and then oversee a few crews and then became an operations manager and just kind of worked my way all the way up to the executive level in the industry. I was working for a regional player as kind of an area manager for them, running Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Toledo, Ohio, and I was burning out. I thought that I was burning out on the industry,
Mm-hmm.
so I started making exit moves from the industry, and then it kind of picked up steam faster than I intended for it to. And in the fall of 2017, I burned my life to the ground. And it was there's a lot behind that statement as well. And so, it took me through 2017 and 18 to kind of hit my place where I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that this was my proverbial rock bottom, and it really didn't have as much to do with alcohol for a rock bottom, though that was definitely part of the issue.
Mm.
Um, but I finally just hit my knees and said, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And from 2018 on, it's been a different story. It's not like, I hit my knees in prayer and all of a sudden the heavens opened up and this light shone and everything was magically okay. But something definitely shifted in that moment. Within probably a week after that, I met Tammy, my current wife, and she has absolutely been an answer to a prayer. I say that often, but it's not tongue in cheek at all. I am a firm believer that that was the first step in many steps where my prayers were answered.
That's excellent.
So I stayed in the industry. Well, I got out of it briefly,
Hmm.
thought somehow, get this, before I finally hit my knees and surrender, thought that being a restaurant manager would be lower stress than the green industry.
Okay.
Turns out that is not the case. That was probably the worst decision I've ever made professionally because when you throw a guy that's struggling with his identity and self worth and purpose in life,
Hmm.
throw him in with a bunch of 20 and 30 something year old dysfunctional, self medicating kids, basically, it's a
Hmm.
recipe for disaster. And that pretty much hastened my tumble to the bottom.
Wow.
Uh, and so, you know, Tammy at that point said, "You always liked the industry. Why don't you consider going back?" So
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
and kind of worked my way. I started really as an administrative assistant
Hmm.
to an owner. Didn't want anything to do with running crews or operations or any of that stuff. No sales, no real HR. I just touched all the paperwork, made sure the bills were paid.
Yep.
But it became very apparent to him that I had a lot more than just admin skill. So I started helping out with some of their operations. And then I moved through a couple of other positions, which brought us to Synced Up in 2022. I was in the process of trying to bring Synced Up to my current employer at the time, and it didn't end up working out as a relationship for them, but it definitely worked out as a relationship for me. Uh, I made a shift in I went from working kind of traditional roles in the industry, operations manager, sales manager. I was a general manager at a $4.5 million full service company before I left and went to Synced Up. And, it was a radical change. I was terrified. But what I found was that work that I was doing with folks and their budgets awakened something in me and started filling a tank that I didn't even realize I had.
Yeah.
It was really my first taste of true purpose.
Mm.
And I still love this industry, right? I'm going on 35 years, but I
Yep.
loved what I was doing at Synced Up because it was part of touching people in a way that it helped make their lives better. It was me trying to shine on them so that they could turn and shine on other people around them, which is really pretty metaphorical for my walk with faith, too, right? We're supposed to
Yeah.
be the light and let people see the light, and then they can
Hmm.
shine light on other people, too.
Yep. Yep.
So, those 3 years that I spent at Synced Up were amazing. They were transformative for me. And even though I'm no longer at Synced Up, I will always have this fondness for them because they share part of this transformative story, right?
Hmm.
So that's where we're at today. After 3 years was Synced Up, I just really felt that it was time to talk about more than just budgets. I already did. Anybody that knows me from that
Hmm.
world knows that I always dove a little bit deeper and it probably felt a little bit more like therapy sometimes. Now, not a therapist, but I hope to make it transformative. I
Yeah.
want to pass that transformation on to other people,
I
you
love it.
know, and it'll come in the form of sharing knowledge. It's a green industry company for
Yeah.
sure. I have loads of green industry knowledge that I am willing to share.
Yep.
But I will always also focus on the human side of everything because we lose sight of that often in this industry.
We do. And what I love about your heart and why I wanted to have you on here is the fact that, you have this principle of each one teach one like me, right? So whatever we've learned, whatever God has given us in testimony and in experience, we now have the opportunity to share it with others, right? That's really his bigger purpose for all of these things in our lives, whether they're a challenge or whether they're a triumph, they're all part of that conversation and that part of your story. So I love your heart for sharing that. That's why I wanted to have you on here. So uh, what's the name of the company? What is your target? And then I have some questions for you about what's going on there.
Yeah, that's fine. The name of the company is Vine and Compass, and it is just that. It's a green industry consultancy that also focuses on the whole person, uh, because this whole thing is a machine, right? And all parts of the machine have to be running smoothly,
Mhm.
including your home life and your marriage. You
Yep.
know, your marriage is equally yoked when it comes to your vocation, right?
Mm.
They are both part of your identity in God's eyes.
Amen.
So you have to make sure that both of those things are getting equal effort.
Mm. Absolutely.
And sometimes that's a hard look in the mirror.
Yep. That is for sure. Especially when you're burning your candle at both ends, trying to keep your customers happy, keep the bank accounts full, and trying to be, dad or mom at home and trying to do the very best you can and be there for the games and be there for dinner and to be present and not burned out at the end of the day. There's all of those things. So one thing when I was reading through some of your content you sent over before we jumped on here, you jump into this idea of how structure leads to peace, not rigidity. And I think of structure in my early days in business was like, man, I don't want structure. That's why I got away from working for somebody. Was not raised. I was raised on the farm, in the garden center, but also I had almost 4 years that I worked in a restaurant when I was first starting my business out. And I was valet parking cars, which was the best freaking job, man. I loved that. We got there the latest and we left the earliest. We made the most money and we got to drive cool stuff, right? It was so much
See,
fun. Then
me, that job was delivering pizzas,
there you
right?
go.
Like I love delivering pizzas. It is not a job that you can, make a life out of, but by
Yeah.
golly, it was fun, man. I
Yeah.
love delivering
It's
pizzas. So I
great.
totally get that, man.
Yeah,
If
that
only.
and yeah, exactly that, and then washing dishes, bussing tables, whatever it took to make some money back then and get the business rolling, right? So that's what I
Sure.
did for years. But when it comes down to it, I was like, I want to get out of there because I'm tired of this idea of working for somebody, and I didn't like the handcuffs that I felt like it came with. So when I started the business, I'm thinking, I want freedom, baby. That's what we all want, right? We want freedom of time. We can do whatever we want, whenever we want, with whoever we want, for as long as we want. This is the idea we're sold for a business. And then we start running one and we realize that it takes way more time and way more effort than we could have ever calculated ahead of time. And there's very often it started like that freedom started becoming a prison, right? I was like, man, if I don't do all these things, I don't
Mhm.
get the thing that I originally wanted, which is a freedom, but I don't have time for freedom anymore. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about, I know a lot of contractors see structure as restrictive, like somehow, like I don't want my business. I started this business to be free, and it might kill my creativity. So why do you believe that the opposite is true?
Well, and some of this is, kind of going back to my own life experiences, right? I had a
Mm,
very chaotic, never knew what was coming next life in my youth, to the tune of 7 different school systems in 7 different years, right?
mm,
So that's the kind of chaos that I had. And then I went into the Marine Corps where there was a lot of structure.
mhm,
And it wasn't like I had a light bulb moment then and said, I will take this notion to people, 35, 40 years from now. No, I didn't recognize it for what it was. One of many ways that the fingerprints were on my life back
yep,
there is
yep,
fingerprints. And so, but as I look back on it now, I was always, and I'm still known for being fairly even keeled and smooth. And, like I don't get real riled up and I'm pretty cool under pressure. And some of that's brain wiring, but some of that is, for example, when I got to the Marine Corps, as unpleasant as sometimes it could be, military life, there was peace in always knowing exactly what was expected of you and
yeah,
exactly what the mission was.
yep,
You never had to worry about any of that. It took all the thought out of it, right?
yep,
But most of us, as we hit later in life, and we hit adulthood and we become these business owners, we equate structure with control,
Mm.
right? Structure is control because all we've ever experienced it has been under pressure, production schedules, and you got to go faster. You got to try and get it done in this amount of time, right? Client deadlines and chaos management because this industry somehow became this chaotic thing, and it doesn't have to be that way. That is a story for another time.
Mm.
Real structure, it's not really about control. It's about clarity more than
Yep.
anything, right? So, like when you know where your time and money and attention are going, well, then your brain can close down some of those 12 tabs that you got running, right? You don't have to worry about that. You know, that quiet that you get as a result of that, that's where creativity can take place because now you can stop and breathe, right?
Yep.
How do you force creativity, right? You're going to sit down with all these photos of 5 different jobs and sketches and notes that you've taken, and now you've got to force creativity to get those estimates out, by golly. And that just doesn't ever work right.
That's right.
Chaos suffocates creativity, order protects it.
Yep. Yeah, and so much stress comes into our industry specifically because of the lack of systems and structure.
Oh, yeah.
Again, when I first started out, I didn't know anything about systems and structure. I just kept doing whatever came up, and I was shooting from the hip constantly. And there, like you said, there's 12 tabs open. You got all these customers and what they need in one, and then the things you got to get done. I got to get this design done. I got to fix this on the trailer. I've got to fix this on the truck. And this guy might not show up tomorrow because his wife's pregnant. And it's like all these tabs open, and the amount of stress that I was going through at the time was crazy. And once I realized after reading E-Myth and starting to simplify and systemize the business, and I was like, wait a minute here. If I could systemize this, there's less tabs to be open at that point because there's a certain structure in the way that we do things. And then everybody knows that structure. So that's less things to think about. And then, like you had said, clarity is important, and clarity comes from structure. And
Right.
when we have clarity, we can have confidence, right? That's really what we're
Mhm.
looking for. We're looking for certainty, we're looking for clarity, and we'll get confidence. And that happens having a structure that everybody understands. That's why the Marine Corps
Right.
or the armed services really feeds that because it's very organized. Not to say we have to run our businesses that way, but
Right.
there's definite truth in what they're doing there.
Well, and even then you're stepping into that negativity of structure, right? You say,
Mm,
well, you don't have to run a business that way. Why not? One
mm,
of the things we learned in the Corps was kind of the rule of threes, not the threes where you can only hold your breath for 3 minutes and so on and
mm.
so forth. It's more like you're in charge of 3 teams, or you're in charge of 3 other people on your team,
Yep.
or you've got 3 teams, or which make a squad, and then you've got 3 squads plus your squad is a full platoon, and so on and so forth. It runs up.
Mhm.
When you get beyond that, your productivity, your accuracy, all of that starts to degrade. Your proficiency starts to degrade.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's all about the structure. If you know what it takes to do this thing, well, you'll know what it'll take to do the next thing, right? And that's how you scale. You build to a certain point and you say, okay, well, this equals this much. Well, now I know that to get this much again, I have to sell this much.
Yep.
But that's only once you've got systems in place to watch all this stuff.
Absolutely. It's so important. So another question for you is, what's the first small piece of structure that usually brings the biggest sense of peace to an overwhelmed business owner? What have you seen?
Weekly reset, weekly
Okay.
reset, weekly tie up, whatever you want to call it, because it's both, right? You've got to carve out some time to have that week end, week beginning conversation with yourself. And you have to get everything laid out that is important to you, right? So every Sunday, for example, if that's the day you do it, sit down with your calendar and decide what actually matters this week, and you
Yeah.
schedule it. I always say if it doesn't get on the schedule, it doesn't get done, right? We've always heard
Yeah.
stuff like that. But the flip side of that is also true. If you want to ensure that it gets done, put it on the schedule and then do it. Stick to the schedule. It's about
Yeah.
consistency, right? One of those C's as we were running through all of that. You know, you don't plan your days around the noise, but most of the time, what we find in this industry is we're reacting to the noise.
Yep.
So you plan around your priorities. That single rhythm check will reclaim more mental space than any app or spreadsheet ever will. Being intentional about what you intend to do in the future, man, it's one of the keys to life. Look
Preach, brother.
forward.
Preach.
Don't look back, right?
Yeah.
Don't look backward. It's not where you're going. Even Ben Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy talks about being your future self now, right?
Mm.
Assume that you're there, and that will
Yeah.
help lead you there. If you
Yeah.
spend time back there, guess where it's going to hold you?
Yep.
Back
Yep.
there. That's
Exactly.
why we're all, and as men, we're on islands, right? Here we are, we're business owners, and we take all this stuff on. 75% of us are attention deficits. So our life is chaos just by nature, right? And
Mm.
then we take it on, we make this business chaotic because the business isn't chaotic. It's our brains that are chaotic, and we're running our businesses that way,
That's right.
right? And so you just get all that chaos going along, and you just throw up your hands and you say, well, that's just the way this business is, you know? No,
Yep.
reclaim it.
Yep.
And it's not
Yep. Yep.
about, I mean, I know you got to buy your time back and all those things too, but really this is just about intentionality. You
I
sit
love it.
down and you say, I'm going to develop a rhythm and
Yep.
I'm not going to make it unattainable like your New Year's resolutions. That's why we fail. We set a bar far too high. You set measurable, attainable goals and you put those things in place. And by the way, the first things that you need to schedule are faith and family time
Oh, yeah.
and your self time. That can kind of go with faith,
Mm.
but you've got to work on all those things. Remember again, all these things are a machine. They're equally yoked.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that's the deal, man. Just that
I love
one,
it.
if I could tell somebody to do one thing, sit
Yep.
down and really be intentional about how did this week go and what worked? What do I
Mm.
want to get done in this week?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's so true. And I've heard it so many times, even in my tribe, we have the same concept. We call it the OMAs we do each Sunday, which is outcome, mission, and your action plan for the week. Right. And you focus on what's the plan going to be.
Perfect.
You're going to lay it all out and you're going to be like, okay, it's Sunday. By
Yep.
Friday or Saturday, here's where I want to be. We're going to set it in the schedule, plan around that. And there's a question I love to ask any of my clients that I coach or whatever when it comes to time management. And it's a question I was asked and it really floored me. And it's, if I opened your calendar on your phone or wherever you keep your calendar, Chris, right now, what story would your calendar tell me?
So I block all my time,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that I coach is block out your time and put your tasks within those time blocks,
Yeah.
right?
But I mean, the question really is about the stories, meaning that, you know, if you open your phone up or wherever you keep your schedule and it's blank, that means there is no schedule.
There is
If
no
it's
plan.
just the meetings you got to take that week and everything else is open, there's still no plan. If you're not planning your faith, your family time, if you're not planning the time for yourself, you're not planning your time to work
It will
on
get
the business,
squeezed
not
out.
just in it. Yeah, it gets squeezed out because all of a sudden the dumpster fires start flaring up and you're out there with hoses trying to put them out and everything gets shut off. So we must be very purposeful with our time and to make sure that we're A, planning for the week and B, sticking
Makes
to
my
that
heart
schedule.
rate go up just talking about it now. I lived that, man. I have
I
walked
did
through all
too,
these fires. Like
dude.
I have lived the chaotic business owner world. I
Yeah.
have led the self-medicating business owner world,
Yep.
right? I've
Been
led the
there.
one who's trying to figure out how to plan, to work for all these people that are counting on you. But, I became a person whose trains ran on time professionally. My personal life was a shambles,
Yep.
man.
I hear you.
And I was unhappy. I was
Yep. Yep.
unhappy. And you don't realize it until you get later on in life. And then,
It's true.
as I get older, things get simpler,
They do. Yeah.
you
It's
know.
so many dumpster fires in my youth that I can't even grow hair on my knuckles anymore. Trying to put them out.
You say that. No,
You
I'm
probably don't
looking
have any either, do you?
around my ankles either. That's
Oh goodness. Yeah, man, it's pretty wild, but it's at the end of the day, it's really a matter of just being more aware, right? So
every guy out there right now is looking at his knuckles, right?
exactly. He's like, oh crap, I guess I don't
And
have any
maybe
on there
even
either.
every girl too. I don't know. It's
It could
fine.
be. That's fine
Yeah.
too. We don't discriminate
We
here
don't
for
judge
sure.
hairy knuckles no matter who has them.
So
Means
how
you're
do you
calm.
exactly. It means that the fires are in your past. There's a reason why your rearview mirror is smaller than your windshield. You always keep looking forward, right?
You
You leave
man.
everything else behind you that happened. So How do you personally maintain flexibility inside your own structure, especially when life throws you curveballs, bro? We'll wrap up on this question and then we'll get ready for the next episode.
Absolutely. You got to build margin into your schedule just like you build margin into a job, right?
Mm,
Like I build margin right into my systems, flex time, buffer time,
yeah.
whatever it is that you want to call it. I'm going to assume that some level of disruption will occur. I know my brain. I know the industry. Weather alone is unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
So you schedule all your stuff like I talked about, schedule rest, schedule family, schedule faith time, like appointments, right? Just put them as appointments. Sounds very non-romantic, but honestly, serving your people and yourself is very romantic,
Mm,
right? So, you know, flexibility isn't about having no plan. It's really just about protecting what matters
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
blocking the other stuff out so that the interruptions don't own you,
I love it.
you know?
So true.
And if you've got your day blocked out, when something pops up, it will probably fit into one of the blocks that you've got over the next day or two.
Mhm.
As long as you're being responsive, there's no reason why you can't tell a customer that you'll be out. Hey, it's the morning of Tuesday, and you say, hey, I'll be there probably by the end of the day tomorrow. That's 2 full days, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really. But the client's not going to care because you responded to them right away and you had a plan.
Yep. You're giving them certainty and clarity, and that's what they want. That takes the fear away, right? So, amazing stuff, dude. So, listeners, we're going to wrap up today, but next session here, we're going to talk about the truth behind burnout in the green industry. I know we've all felt that. I have medals on my wall of all the dumb stuff that I've done and burned out on over the years, and I'm sure you do too, Chris. So we're going
Oh,
to
yeah.
jump deep into that and talk to Chris about how he's dealt with that and how he's come out of that burnout from the industry. So, Chris, I appreciate our conversation. I can't wait to jump in again.
All right. Thank you, sir.
What if you could close 75% of your projects without chasing, convincing, or dropping your price? That's not a dream, that's the mission. Mission 75. Here at Yes Express Sales Academy, we are spearheading a bold shift to help outdoor living contractors sell with confidence, not desperation. Because let's be real, you've been told to just give them a good price and hope for the best. You've been trained to beg for work and give away your time and compete with contractors who don't even play at your level. That ends now. I wrote the Core 10 Sales Playbook because it's the system I desperately needed 20 years ago. It's built for real-world, design-build contractors, not guys in suits. Inside, I'll show you how to qualify leads in minutes, speak to emotion, not features, cut confusion and eliminate ghosting, lead the sales call with calm authority, and close premium jobs without flinching. That book drops in January 2026. Check out the show notes to get on the list to be the first in line to grab your copy of the Core 10 Sales Playbook before they're gone. This isn't about working harder, it's about selling smarter, and it starts now. Let's raise the standard together.